Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here, and not new brewery time, but it's been a while since we've had these guys. Cartel Brewing and Blending. Yeah, this is their rye barrel aged Maiden. This comes courtesy of my boy Steven. For those who don't know who Steven is, just go watch the Beer Trip Blues videos. You know who Steven is. He's a watcher of the channels. He's a very awesome dude. He brings beers out like a maniac at all times, but more specifically during Beer Trip Blues times. This is one of the more interesting breweries that he brings out because he has a connection to the owner of this brewery. But oddly enough, this brewery is not ultra far from me, but it's very far for him. But I know he does get down there from time to time, and when he does, he brings me beers. I'm looking for a quarter for this sucker. This will work. Or it might not. That works good enough for me. So what are we talking about here? What are we drinking? We're drinking a 9.8% 2022 vintage bottle 203 of 300 Imperial Porter aged 18 months in rye whiskey barrels, nano brewed in Lancaster. Not Lancaster. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So 10% porter. Barrel aged rye whiskey barrels. Does that look like a rye whiskey barrel aged porter? 100%. Love that it has a decent carbonate, especially having a little bit of time on it. Again, not hyper carbonated, not a huge head on it. Not going to expect that with a high ABV, long aged kind of porter from a small brewery. But yeah, we're off to a very, very good start with that. Nice, rich, dark, I like my coffee to look like colored head. You tell me that's a stout, you tell me that's a porter, fine. It's a good nose. Not a gigantic nose. I mean, 10%, you're talking about a small ABV beer, but you're also talking about a porter over a stout, rye whiskey barrels. You're definitely getting a whiskey note off of this. You're getting a little touch of spiciness, so sure, fine. You want a lean rye spice on this, you have at it, but if you didn't tell me this is a rye barrel-aged beer, I don't think I would get it. A little bit of a decent amount of vanilla, actually. Probably the biggest note in the nose. And it almost smells light. And it kind of makes like, okay, haha, funny, porters are lighter. But almost all porters have this little bit of kind of a little fluttering, a little bit lighter nose than you typically get from a heavy, denser stout. And it kind of makes sense here. Porter, export stout, very similar noses. That's what I'm getting here. So I'm getting soft chocolates, a little bit of milk chocolate thrown in there, a little bit of vanilla. It doesn't hurt that this comes from a whiskey barrel. That ultra light spiciness and a little bit of a rich kind of red cherryish note that you would kind of attribute to almost all barrel-aged beers. It smells nice. Doesn't smell like over-the-top punch you in the face 2x4 action, but again, sub 10%. Let's dive in. Cheers, y'all. I'm going to say this, and it sounds like the dumbest thing I was going to say I've ever said, but that's not true. It's like the No Shit Sherlock award for the most obvious thing. This tastes like a 9.8% rye whiskey barrel-aged porter. No shit, that's what you're drinking, but it's almost like Merriam-Webster dictionary. What I'd expect a 9.8% rye whiskey barrel-aged porter to drink like. It has that porter mouthfeel, that fluffiness, that creaminess, that thing that's almost absolutely 100% has to exist in order for me to believe it's a porter. It's here in spades. It's not like a carbonation thing. It's just the way the density of the beer kind of works. Carbonation doesn't hurt, obviously. I think if this has an undercarb, then it comes off way flatter than it should. But it's a nice roasty, toasty porter base. You get this kind of barrel from it. A little bit of vanilla, decent amount of vanilla for its ABV and its expression. A little bit of that charred chocolate thing you tend to get on kind of burnt barrels. And a little bit of sweetness here. but then it's really that rye portion of the show that kind of takes over. So you get a little bit of fruited sweetness, but then it's like spicy, spicy, spicy. So it's a combination, I think, of like maybe a little bit of roasty, toasty maltiness in that porter that is either propping up or accentuated, or vice versa, with that kind of rye spiciness that adds this little bit of kind of edge to it. What acts is the hot portion of the show that you typically would get in like in really nice barrel-aged stout. You have that Russian Imperial Stout base. That's typically what they use. So you have that counterbalance of that hoppiness with that big, huge barrel component. A smaller beer, you're using that rye spiciness in combination with that little bit of barrel char, a little bit of roasted toastiness, and then you have that sweeter portion of the spirit and beer portion of the show, kind of counterbalancing everything off. I like this a lot. It's not blowing my doors off. It's not rewriting what I think about barrel-aged beer or porters, but it's really well made. Honestly, really well made. The fact that it's sub 10% is probably one of my favorite things about it, because, you know, almost exclusively, all these barrel-aged beers nowadays are like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Sure, I do get my occasional 10%, sub 10%, but it really rarely lands with any kind of meaningfulness. You know, that low ABV stout thing tends to be a little bit of kind of like a Bermuda's triangle of not goodness when it comes to the beers that I've had. And I really dig on this. This is the kind of thing where I would love to go to the brewery and they'd be like, oh yeah, we have a vertical of these bottles. This is a beer I would love to do a vertical of. See how it's been manipulated and changed over the years. See how it's varied. Being that it's not 15% and it's sub 10%, you might be able to drink a couple of those and still live the tell the tale. It's probably a better way to put it rather than stumbling over my words. So yeah, I dig it. I think it's tasty. I think it's fun. Am I blown away? No, but same time, you're talking about a porter, barrel-aged porter, rye barrel-aged porter, not necessarily like going to be on the hot list of what people want as far as barrel-aged beers. I think they did a really great job of it and made a really nuanced, really fun. I don't want to use the word subtle, but meaningful barrel-aged beer, but probably the best descriptors I can use at this moment. So we're going to throw them down like that and just say, I dig it. It's one of the better barrel-aged porters I've had as of late. Absolutely. It's worthy of Mount Rushmore status there, because there's been so few hits and all misses. It just, the fall setup, I don't want to kind of like, I don't want to frame it that way because it's worthy of being up there. Value and availability, no idea. Steven, let me know. And leave you with, if you like what we like this, if you like whiskey barrel-aged porters. I know it's so on the nose and it's like, okay, sure, fine, whiskey barrel-aged, but they're so, they get them so wrong all the time that for one to be this right, it just kind of makes sense. So if you dig that, you'll dig this. There you go. Cartel Brewing and Blending. Have you been to the brewery? I know they kind of moved not super long ago. So, you know, have you been in the old brewery? Have you been to the new brewery? Have you had this beer? All that fun stuff down there. What's your favorite Cartel beer? Let's talk about it down below. Hopefully enjoy the review. Hopefully enjoy a little bit of barrel-aged spiciness right now. Hope to see you next time.